Shawn, can you talk about the third piece of the model?
Absolutely. So the D in Ph.D. stands for deposits, right? And this is all about like where are we putting, our money? Now, and its advocacy for doing business with Black banks and Black financial institutions, right? Why is that? Like we need to understand like the fundamental role of what banks do. So they collect deposits, but then they're lending out those deposits, providing capital for consumers to buy homes and cars, and especially for businesses to do more commercial activity, which increases job creation, right? So your deposits are then lent out to provide capital to create jobs and for business expansion. When you look at kind of all Black banks in general, the numbers in total somewhere around 4.7, maybe $4.8 billion of deposits. But when you look at Black people, we have well over $100 billion in all other banks. Right? The number's closer between 130, $140 billion. I mean, the movement of resources into like Black enterprise, into Black banks is super critical. Why is that? Well, you have the community nature of those banks, which is they're closer to the community. That knowledge obviously can lower risk. They're closer to the businesses there. There's less of a discriminatory lending process, right? There's historically been a tremendous amount of discrimination within the financial services industry, which we can read about and research and so on and so forth. Black banks tend to with far less of any type of discriminatory infrastructure. So you can get business out to Black enterprise, but they can't lend what they don't have the resources. So if you think about how much they have in deposits, about 4.8-ish billion or so, there's studies that have said that right now, Black banks could need as much as $9 billion of capital now, of credit now. Right? And 7 to 8 out of 10 of them would hire now if they had access to capital. And Black businesses are employing over 1 million people. So we're talking about really, really large numbers. And we've got over $100 billion that's not even in those banks, right? So the idea is at the end of the day, how do we connect this to employment and to job creation and to providing capital for those things? That's a win for us. That's a win for the communities that intersect with us. That's a win for the country. The other thing that's important for us to know is that there's something that I know you are very well aware of, but I'll share with our viewers here. That's called like the money multiplier effect, right? Which is if you have a deep and broad financial system, the money that you put into a bank is loaned out, right? And it's actually loaned out over 10 times. So $1 has a $10 impact in the community, right? So if you're talking, but the way that works is you put the money in a bank, right? What happens is the bank will minus the reserve that they need to keep, the amount that they need to keep in a bank. They'll lend it out to someone else who will then deposit in a bank, right? And then they'll lend it out, so on and so forth. But what has to happen is the redeposit has to be back into a Black bank, right? As you're going so on and so forth. So it requires, and it's important that Black businesses and our allies are also doing business with Black banks so we can get into that money multiplier effect. Because we're not getting the advantage of any of that today, right? You're very familiar with people talking about how quickly money goes out of the Black community. By the way, nobody ever tells you how to calculate that, right? But the essence of that is it leaves so quickly because it's through the banking system. Right? As it's spent and redeposited, it's not being redeposited in our communities because so few of us actually deposit any resources in our Black bank, and so few other people do it. So we have a limited ability to self-finance. Let me give you another example, right? So if you look at the money in Black banks, again, it's around this kind of 4.8-ish kind of billion, maybe more, right? If you look at how much money is in kind of Hispanic, Latino financial enterprises, you're talking about almost 100 billion.
100 billion.
Yeah, when you're looking at like Asian, predominantly Asian kind of banks, it's almost 100 billion.
In the United States. In the United States.
In the United States, right? So what is the importance of that? That's a great thing for them. That's wonderful. Like I love it. Keep doing it, right? What it means is they have a greater ability to self-finance and a greater ability to shield themselves from some of the discrimination because they're discriminated against too, just not as much. But they have much more capital to do their own internal lending as well. right? And take advantage of the outside companies that aren't as discriminatory, right, to them. We don't have that. We do have significant resources, but they're not in our institutions. So we're not as able to self-finance, and we're not as able to shield ourselves from that. And why is this super critical? Because Black businesses, when our loans, we're paying 100 basis points or full interest rate, 1% more than not white businesses at every level, regardless of credit. You're paying a higher risk, even though you're not more risky. And by the way, it's the same for consumers who in their housing lending, right? We're paying about 1.5% more on average for other people, even though we're no more risky than them. So when the researchers are doing it, they're doing it comparable to comparable, right? And there's still a differential. This is all part of this Black tax, that I'm talking about. So what I'm doing is proposing between now and some remedy, between now and nirvana, between now and some point in the future where everything is all good, let's help to accelerate that process by providing the capital that we can use to facilitate business development expansion in our businesses. Again, I'm not saying that everyone is intentionally discriminating against us. It's happening in two modes. It's explicit, intentional, and a lot of it is unconscious. People don't know it. I'm not picking a horse. I'm not saying I know what's driving it. What I'm saying is it costs a financial impact, a negative financial impact on Black businesses and families and communities when you have those differentials. And we need to be able to reduce that. And this is a way for us to be able to do it. And more importantly, or equally important, it's a way for others to do it too, right? If you want to have impact, put your money in a Black enterprise, right? You don't have to be Black to do that, right? There's far more. Actually, for every $10,000 in the US banking system, only $4 is in a Black bank.
Every 10,000, you said?
For every 10,000 in the US banking system, only $4 is in a Black bank. A horrifically mind-blowingly low number, right? So this is about the economic health of communities. My view is intersecting with people who are like, how do we solve these problems and how do we have impact, right? And what I get is people saying, well, where are these Black banks? How do we put our money in it? And those are the questions that we want people to ask, and those are the actions that we want them to follow through. And it's not just Black people that are saying that, because a lot of folks don't know this stuff. They have no idea. They've been told something different, right? And what they've been told and what we've been told is that the problem is fundamentally us. It's about decisions that we've made or not made over an extraordinarily long period of time, and that's why we're there. In the book, I show that research is actually quite different in terms of the assessments that are being made. It's the environment that's been imposed upon us that has caused gargantuan costs that have led us to this position. And once we can make differentiations, distinction between the role of the environment and the role of the individual, seeing the solutions becomes clear, and seeing how the role you can play and being part of the solution becomes clear. Now we're not fighting people. What we're trying to do now is figure out how to actually do it, how to actually execute it. And that's the problem that I want us all stuck on, right? That's the problem that I want us all really kind of sharpening our pencils and working on, not focused on why are we having this conversation? I thought we were past this. Aren't we post all this stuff, right? We're wasting a lot of time, energy, and effort if that's where we are, and that's where we tend to be right now. So my role is, how do we accelerate us beyond that so we can deal with the real challenges?
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And, this was a very eye-opening conversation for me personally as well. Thank you for sharing, all of your knowledge, information to our audience. So as a reminder, everyone, this was, brother Shawn D Rochester. And Shawn is the author of The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. Go check it out on Amazon. Go ahead and purchase it.
You can buy the book at www.blacktaxed, that's past tense, blacktax.com. And you can visit us. You can, reach me on Facebook, Shawn Rochester, on Twitter, Black Taxed. And you can visit us on our other website, which is www.goodsteward with a D, living.com.